welcome back. It is Monday. I am Mr. Sosatris, and this week I'm doing a short introduction to the novel Beloved by Toni Morrison. This is a huge favorite of mine, and I always love having excuses to highlight it for other people. Now, this was published in 1987, and just for some context, this came out 5 years, there's a cat here. This came out 5 years after Michael Jackson's Thriller album. This came out 2 years after the movie Back to the Future was released, and it came out the year after the Chernobyl disaster. So, I know. And so, while many might dismiss it as kind of an old, stuffy book, this is a relatively recent book. Now, I know, like, the 80s is still, like, ancient history for a lot of people, but this is not an ancient book. For context, this came out 50 years after The Hobbit was released. So, this is a recent book, yes, and Circe really loves it. This book is set during kind of the uncertain period during Reconstruction after the American Civil War, and it follows Sethe, who is a formerly enslaved person who's kind of found some kind of security in the North, but she's still sort of unsettled. Her and her family are plagued by a malevolent ghost that they can't seem to get rid of, and so they meet up with someone who was also from the same plantation that Sethe was in back in the day, and he's able to exorcise the ghost. But shortly after that, this mysterious woman named Beloved shows up, and she has kind of an odd connection with Sethe, and she seems to be able to sort of draw the life out of her. And so the book kind of analyzes the mystery of sort of who Beloved is, where she came from, and what she wants. This is a masterpiece of American Southern Gothic fiction, and there's elements of psychological horror as well, and there's also supernatural elements. Using the kind of supernatural stuff, Morrison is able to sort of dig into sort of the scars and the wounds left over from slavery, and kind of explore the kind of systemic racism that Black communities faced forever after. It hasn't really ever gone away. It's just kind of changed. But don't think of this as kind of a message book. I'm thinking of, there's a 1940 book by Richard Wright called Native Son, which is also in itself an important book in kind of African American literature, but the first two sections of that book are wonderful and gripping and engaging, and then the third section is just, it's like a speech. There's a character who's a lawyer who kind of gives a speech about racism in America, and it's like multiple pages, but you get the feeling that like he drew you in with this great story, and then when you're trapped, then he's like, aha, I have a lecture for you. And so it's not very subtly done, and it doesn't really work. The first two sections of that book are great, but this one is perfection through and through. This book is wonderful, and it's a short book, but it's filled with so much nuance and depth, and the characters are great that there's been so much scholarship written about this book, you could fill a whole library with just that. So it's just a really meaningful, important book. And so I know people are kind of put off by, it's depressing and it's sad, and it is, but I don't know, Morrison is so good at writing characters that you just kind of get drawn into sort of the family drama and the mystery of the supernatural elements and what they mean, that it doesn't feel like it's just torture porn, if that makes sense. It's not a book where it makes you feel bad just for the sake of feeling bad. It really creates a specific unsettling vibe that draws you in, and you just become caught up in these people's story, and it's just wonderful. I love it so much. Now, I know in many high schools, high school students are taught this book, and I feel like this isn't really a book that would speak to them. Like, there's definitely tons of high school students who'd be able to read it and understand it, but I don't think it would really connect with them. This is a book that's really written to like adults who are angry at the state of the world, and children just, I don't know if they would be able to really connect with it. They would just kind of feel like it was confusing, or it just wouldn't make sense. And even if they did kind of understand it intellectually, they wouldn't really be able to just like get it, you know. And so if you did read this in high school and you felt that it was boring or it was slow, I know that's what I heard a lot from the other people. I never had to read this in high school, but a lot of the other classes did, and everyone that I talked to was always like, oh, you have to read this book and it's so boring and it's slow and I didn't like it. So if you had to read it in high school and you didn't enjoy it then, and you're an adult now, please give it another go. This is very much a book that's speaking to adults who are feeling lost and feeling upset and just feeling disconnected from the world. It's really, that's who its audience is. This isn't really a book that would make a lot of sense to kind of high school students. The prose is absolutely gorgeous. The book has this kind of poetic musical quality that is just so much fun to read. It's just beautiful. And there is an audiobook version of this that's read by the author. If you have a chance, definitely check that out. Toni Morrison had a very quiet, soothing kind of voice. I know some like audiobook readers tend to be a little more theatrical and a little more loud, because they have to kind of play all the characters. And so when you read it, you might kind of be like, wow, she's speaking really softly, and it's kind of hard to hear sometimes. But just, I mean it, it's worth it. It's such a good reading because it's her own characters. She understands it, and you just get so much inside the characters' heads, and you understand kind of the richness of the prose because she reads it exactly the way it's supposed to be read, and it just has this rhythm and bounce to it that is just beguiling. I never use that word ever, but it's true. So definitely give this one a go. I love this book so much. If you haven't read it, please read it. It's a ghost story. I know we're kind of past spooky season, but you know, there's still ghosts at Christmas time. That's fine. So, you know, it's fine. But so with that said, I will let you go. Enjoy your reading. Happy holidays. I will see you next week. Bye.